Good morning, kids. Today we're checking out a brand new video from the film theaters about the 3 deadly truths behind the Star Trek transporter. Now, yeah, there's probably one that makes it similar to, like, the movie The Fly. Anyway, let's hop in and see what MapPad was able to figure out.
Okay, I got all the samples we need. We're really gonna blow this theory wide open.
Come on.
Map Pat to Enterprise, 1 to beam up.
There we go.
Oh!
Wait. Something's not right. We're losing him. This shouldn't be happening.
Kill me!
Oh god.
Why do we keep using these things?
What happened?
Hello, Internet! Welcome to Film Theory, the show that
Yeah,
boldly
man.
goes where no show has gone before. Well, except that other time we went where no show has gone before.
Oh,
Yeah,
well,
it's
look at
been
that.
a minute since we've talked about Star Trek on this channel. 3.5 million minutes, to be exact. Over 7 years. And man,
Damn,
this series
7
really seen a
years?
revival since that time. Sadly, there haven't been any more movies, but did you know that between streaming and YouTube, there are more Star Trek shows released after our previous theory than before it? Wrap your head around that one. It is
Oh.
mind-blowing. And there are even more on the way. Just saying, all you Trekkies out there are eating good right now. But
Damn
beyond
right
the
they
strange new worlds they're exploring, the one thing I'm most excited about is the potential for new memes. Feels like it's been too long since we got a new Picard facepalm, or sarcastically
Classic.
surprised Kirk, or...
Classic.
Really, it's
And
impressive how
Khan.
many lines from the Star Trek series have just entered into everyday speech. You got, he's dead, Jim, and set your phasers to stun. And of course, the all-time classic, beam me
Now,
up.
those are both Now, these are all classic. They've been around since the 90s. Is hell. I'm not a 90s person, but even I know all those lines. And I've never watched Star Trek even one episode.
Scotty. For all you Zoomers watching who only recognize that as something your grandparents say, this was the catchphrase that everyone in the original Star Trek show would say when they were ready to teleport back to their starship, the Enterprise. See, the original Star Trek was made on the cheap.
That's right. Beam me up, Scotty. Classic.
And I mean, the cheap. That's why all the costumes look like bedazzled sweaters and the alien planets look like they were made from
Get
paper
gub.
mache. It's probably because they were bedazzled sweaters and paper mache. And because they didn't want to blow the budget on every episode flying down to whatever new world they were visiting, they invented a form of teleportation known as the transporter. That basically cost the production team nothing. You just step into a tube, get surrounded by glitter swirling in water filmed upside down in slow motion, and then you get beamed wherever you need to go as long as it's in range. Honestly, it's a cool piece of
Nice.
sci-fi tech that's helped to craft the utopian future that Star Trek is so well known for. Or did it? See, the transporter's
Or
been the
did it?
topic of discussion amongst the fan base for a
Bum-bum.
long time, with a bunch of philosophical debates around whether or not the person who steps out of the transporter is the same person that went in. See, the way the technology works in the canon of the show is that it breaks the people it transports down to the atomic level. It then beams them to where they need to go, and then it reassembles them there. So, is that really the same person, or just some weird copy with all the same thoughts and memories? It's a classic Ship of Theseus debate, which I can now cite without having to explain too much because you all know it from the finale of WandaVision. CGP Grey actually has an excellent video covering that
Never
exact
mind, go
discussion.
ahead.
Today, though, we wanted to throw our hats into the ring and do something a little bit different with it.
I've
Switching
actually been getting recommended that channel kind of a lot, and the video they all only recommending is hexagons or bestagons, and honestly, they all hexagons are the freaking best.
our phasers from philosophizing to analyzing, because I think there's a truly dark secret lying here inside this piece of technology. One so dark
Oh, yeah?
and so devastating that the citizens of the Federation should be running as far and fast as they can to avoid this thing. After
Show us what
diving
you
back
got.
into the Trek series, I'm convinced that the transporters are weapons of mass destruction that could also be potentially poisoning your brain. Yep, after this one, you're never gonna dream of stepping aboard the Enterprise again. Put on your red shirts, friends. We're beaming
Oh,
aboard.
hey,
So
red.
first of all, what are the transporters exactly? Well, they do exactly what they sound like. They break you down
Transport.
atom by
Yep.
atom and then transport you from one location to another in a form of teleportation, reassembling you on the other end. But how does that actually work? Well, there are a few steps. First, whatever's being transported is scanned by the machine down to the molecular level. Then, as the original series put it,
The molecules in your body are converted into energy, then beamed into this chamber and reconverted back into their original pattern.
okay, that's a bit of a technobabble solution, but for the sci-
Like a weird inverse of a 3D disassembler to 3D printer instantaneously, though. So, you know, not the not slow and tedious for
Sci-fi
hours
setting,
to
sure,
days.
checks out. And that certainly looks like what's happening here, with all the characters dissolving into
There's a
light
quick-
and then reappearing from the same sort of light. But just on a surface level, there are some pretty horrifying things that can come from this sort of technology malfunctioning. The Star Trek shows actually get a lot of mileage from these sorts of accidents in their storylines.
Beam the captain and Spock back up.
We don't have the power. They'll come aboard a mass of dying flesh.
And I realized there's no margin for error. One atom out of place and poof, you never come back.
Believe me, we'll be talking a lot
Oh,
more about
babe.
them today, but let's actually think about what they're doing here. They're converting the matter of objects, people, clothes, hair, what they eat for breakfast, all of that stuff, and turning that into energy. That should be setting off some alarm bells in your brain here. And this is our
Yep.
first big reason why no one should be using the transporters. They're very easy to weaponize. See, whenever you start
True.
talking about converting mass into energy and vice versa, there's a very real and very famous scientific equation that lets us do exactly this. In fact, it's one of the
equals
discoveries that
MC
Albert
squared.
Einstein is most famous for. E equals mc squared. All that equation is talking
Ba-boom.
about is energy equals mass times the speed of light squared. It's a pretty simple equation, right? Sure, but the result is some crazy huge numbers when you consider that the speed of light is almost 300 million meters a second. So squaring
God.
that means you're getting a lot of energy from a very teeny tiny amount of mass. This is the idea that nuclear energy was based off of. Seriously, did you know that a chunk of uranium the size of a golf ball in a nuclear reactor can produce more energy than 3,200 tons of coal? This
Yes,
is
I
why.
actually
And that's
did
with
know that.
modern day technology that's awful at converting mass into energy. We only get a fraction of what's available to us, and we're left with a ton of unusable waste afterward. But if you can convert matter into energy perfectly, like these transporters would need to do if they're moving people around intact, well, to convert just a single gram of matter to pure energy with 100% efficiency, that would be equivalent to 89.9 terajoules of energy, or the energy released by the detonation of over 21,000
Oh,
tons
God.
of TNT. If you scale that up to an average-sized human man, right around 200 pounds or 90 kilograms, Einstein's equation means that you're getting an energy equivalent of this crazy number.
Oh,
That means nothing to you?
yeah.
Fair. Basically, that would be the same as 54,000 explosions, just like the little boy bomb dropped on Hiroshima back in World War II. In short, the Star Trek transporters
Yep.
have the potential to be some of the most devastating super weapons in the universe. An explosive more potent than anything we've ever seen on Earth.
It's a bomb maker.
Which you could just set off from anywhere you'd like within the range of the transporter. Oh, I'm sorry, you getting bullied by a Romulan warbird? Just transport a Tic Tac on board and let it blow up instead of rematerializing. And before you jump down to the comments
Okay,
and tell
that'd
me
be
I'm wrong
something.
and this would never happen, yeah, I do realize that there are certain safeguards in place in the show. Throughout all the episodes of Star Trek I've watched, there's never once been an accident caused by the matter-energy conversion, but there have been many people who've modified and weaponized their transporters before. Throughout the franchise, we see transporters disable weapons. Weapons get modified with transporter tech to shoot through walls, even replacing people mid-transport to invade a ship. Given all of that, is
Oh.
this sort of matter-to-energy bomb really that much of a stretch, or is it more of a storyline that's yet to be written? Now, before we
Definitely
explore
the
the other
second one.
horrible ways using a transporter could go wrong, let's take a moment to thank our sponsor for today's video, Paradox Interactive, and their
We're
newest
going to do a quick cut, and we're back.
beam back down into our discussion as to why the transporters should terrify you. So
What
we
the
already
hell
know
is
that
that?
putting a human into a transporter would create enough explosive energy that you could wipe a planet clean. But the horrifying scientific implications of these futuristic inventions don't just stop there. See, when you break things down to the atomic level, you can do way more than just move those atoms around and piece them back together. You can also rearrange those atoms to create something brand new. And we see this
A
concept
cucumber?
used all the time in the form of Star Trek's replicators. A replicator is a machine that can create and recycle things. Replicators were originally used to synthesize meals on demand, but in later series they were used to create larger non-food items. As Commander Riker
Oh,
explains,
cool.
You've seen something as fresh and tasty as meat, but inorganically materialized out of patterns used by our transporters.
materialized by our transporters. So the
Bum bum.
replicators are using the same matter to energy conversion technology. It's taking an existing reservoir of matter and energy and using those components as building blocks to copy a pattern stored in the computer of whatever item you want. Say, for
Makes
instance,
sense.
a nice juicy steak. It's kind of a lot like a 3D printer. But then where are they getting all that matter from? Obviously, they don't have some other steak in some other room teleporting onto your plate, and they're not creating matter from nothing because that's scientifically impossible. It has to come from somewhere. So where's that steak from? Poop. Crapola. We actually learned this
Oh.
in Star Trek Discovery.
It's made of our
That's the base material that we use in our replicators. We deconstruct it to the atomic level and then reform the atoms. Pretty good for...
Yep, everyone in Star Trek is literally
Disgusting.
just eating poop rearranged at the subatomic level. I don't know if intergalactic
Oh, boy.
peace is worth the price. No, I'm not just bringing this up because it's funny. Things get really creepy when you take this to the logical extreme. If the replicators are using the same matter-energy conversion technology as the transporters, and the
Disgusting.
replicators are basically able to create things from scratch using a basic set of atomic building blocks, could you just print out clones of humans? Yeah, 100% you could. And that isn't even something that we need to speculate about.
I'm Commander
I
William
guess.
Riker from the Federation Starship Enterprise. It's not possible. I'm Will Riker.
Yeah, this happens
Bum bum.
multiple times throughout the course of the franchise with
Sorry.
varying results. Brad Boimler's cloned in a transporter accident in Star Trek Lower Decks. Captain Kirk was also split in two during the episode The Enemy Within, which not only cloned his body, but divided his personality between them.
Ooh.
The most famous example of this, though, is a transporter accident from The Next Generation and the episode Second Chances, where you see William Riker materialize both on the Enterprise and back on the planet that he was being transported from. This second Will Riker was more or less his own person, taking on the name Thomas Riker, complete with a personality distinct from Will based on their different experiences after being split. This, of course, prompts a lot of philosophical questions raised by the fan base. Even the show isn't sure which one of these is quote-unquote real.
Which of them is real?
Well, that's the thing. Both. You were both material.
It could be both of them and neither of them at the exact same time. I mean, if you think about it, since they were split from the same person, the only way for the real Riker to then exist would be for them to somehow fuse back into one body. So, unless you somehow got some kind of molecular combinal, yeah, you ain't getting them back. Easy.
Realized from a complete pattern.
But even if we don't want to get philosophical about this, think of the practical ramifications here. What's to stop someone from modifying a transporter and making a clone of someone, anyone they wanted, at any time they wanted? That person would have no paper trail. No one would know they exist, and that has some dark complications. They'd
Yeah,
be
you're
a
right
perfect
about that.
assassin, a perfect alibi, a perfect victim. That right there, that is horrifying. Most importantly of all, the transporter clone would absolutely be made of poop. And not only can transporters make copies,
Oh
they
my
can
God.
also create new life. In the Voyager episode Tuvix, two of the ship's crew, Tuvok and Neelix, are accidentally combined into a single life form after a transport gone wrong. This new creature is named Tuvix. Get
Oh,
it?
well,
So
there
the
you
names
go.
combined. Yeah, I see what you're doing there, Star Trek. Can't get sneaky stuff like that past me. Anyway, during the transport, the pair's DNA strands merge to create something entirely new. And again, this opens the door to horrific moral quandaries. Tuvix is his own person with his own thoughts and feelings, and so obviously he's not going to be all that keen on dying. So when the opportunity arises to bring the two crew members back to life by pumping Tuvix back through the transporter, Voyager's captain is faced with a terrible choice. To this day, whether or not this was the right thing to do or if it was outright murder has challenged the fan base, all because of these dangerous...
Well, technically, there would be a way of bringing them back. Now, that would be a moral question. And you take a DNA sample from him and a DNA sample from her, but that through the transporter. Well, maybe I was going to say something about like adding in a mannequin or something for a body, but no. I mean, you just put in the DNA sample and then bop bop bop, new body. So there you go. That could have brought him back.
transporters and how they have uncertain effects on the people they're teleporting. No one tell the Trekkies that Tuvix could have lived. They just could have brought back the other two as poop clones. Now, creating clones and fusions of people who go through the transport process is a terrifying concept. But the worst one for me, reason number 3 you should never use a transporter, it has the potential to slowly drive you insane until you're erased from reality. Transporter psychosis is in fact a real thing in the Star Trek universe.
Transporter psychosis was diagnosed in the year 2209. It is caused by a breakdown of
2209.
neurochemical molecules during transport.
This disease affected motor skills and reasoning ability, and caused paranoid delusions, dementia, and hallucinations. In universe,
Oh,
they
damn.
eventually found the cause of transporter psychosis and fixed it, but for a while, especially during the era of Captain Kirk, every time a character was transported, there was a chance that they would literally lose their mind. But you see, the fact that this is just a thing that
That's
can
hell.
and has happened in the Star Trek franchise got me wondering, what else could these transporters do to your head? What's the worst thing that these could be used for? Clearly, what's normal for a transporter is that you go in conscious and you come out conscious, remembering all the same stuff. That's fairly consistent for the series. But if
Yeah.
you really
Yeah.
dig into the lore of this thing, you're also conscious while you're being transported. In the Next Generation episode Realm of Fear, the crew of the Enterprise
Oh,
beam
this is
over to a
cool.
derelict ship, but they run into some trouble.
I'll have to send you over one at a time, Commander, because of bandwidth limitations. And the transport cycle will take a bit longer.
How much longer?
4 or 5 seconds, about twice the normal time.
The extended transport cycle is played up for drama in the episode because one of the crew, Lieutenant Barkley, has a transporter phobia. Smart man considering everything we've been talking about today. But the reason that I bring this episode up is that we actually see the transport cycle through Barkley's eyes. And he experiences the whole thing multiple times. And this isn't unique to just Barkley.
Have you ever seen anything during transport?
Sometimes my visor picks up resonance patterns from matter energy conversion.
This proves that you're conscious during transport. You're aware of your body being split apart and reassembled. Now that in and of itself is weird, and it creates a complementary portion of existential dread with your instant teleportation. But on the whole, thankfully it's over in just 2 to 4 seconds, so at least it's short. But what if it didn't take just a couple of seconds? What if you got trapped mid-transport for whatever reason? Well, it's something that's happened before. In another Next Generation episode, Relics, Scotty from the original series saves himself from dying a slow death by locking himself mid-transport within the pattern buffer. In basic terms, he was transported, but then intentionally never rematerialized on the other end, so he just existed in this ethereal state of unbeing for decades. Additionally, something that they don't touch on in this episode is the fact that given the rules and logic we just figured out, Scotty should have experienced all of that time mid-transport. In the actual show, it doesn't seem like he realizes exactly how much time has passed, but if characters like Barkley experienced what it was like mid-transport, Scotty should have as well. Can you imagine? Decades completely isolated, unable to move or, well, do anything, but still fully aware of every minute of it. That would wreak havoc on your brain.
Yes, let me introduce you to someone, Professor Paradox. The man spent millennia and millennia trapped in time. No, trapped outside of time, and had no idea what was going on. Dude was traveling so much back and forth through time, he literally became a time walker. Well, and took up the name Professor Paradox because he had no memory of anything.
You know, it's funny, in the actual episode, Scotty did this to himself to save his own life, but I can't think of a more perfect way to trap, imprison, and torture someone. To force them to be alive and aware in this state of unbeing, all intentionally. That right there, that is horrible. And you know what's even worse? The cherry on top of this replicated poop sundae? Listen to this.
Completely intact. There's less than 0.003% signal degradation.
Your pattern can degrade, meaning that you can literally lose parts of yourself within the transporter. That right there, that is a real thing that's possible in the Star Trek universe.
Damn.
In fact, it happened in this very episode. Another unseen character was also put into this limbo state alongside Scotty, but
His pattern's degraded 53%. He's gone.
You hear that? His pattern degraded, more or less killing him. So not only is the transporter potentially the perfect prison, the ultimate form of complete isolation and torture, it could also be a way to just slowly pick you apart over the course of decades. Any way you look at it, the transporter is a terrifying piece of technology. Not only does it have the potential to create explosions more powerful than anything we can produce today, not only can it create clones of the people it teleports or combine them together, not only does it potentially reconstitute the people who use it out of fecal matter, but it can literally alter your brain and leave you in a limbo as you slowly lose both your mind and your body to the pattern. You know what? After hearing all that,
a new hell.
Please, for the love of Kirk, do not beam me up, Scotty. But hey, that's just a theory. A film theory. And cut.
Well, I think that pretty much says it all. Well, we found a brand new hell in Star Trek. Well, anyway, folks, thank you for joining me in today's episode. I hope you all enjoyed this. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe for more. Link to the original will be in the description below. And I'll see all of you folks next time when we flick on. Peace out.